Thank you, Jeff. Anatoly, I find that everyone in crypto has some interesting story for how they first fell down the rabbit hole. Will you tell us yours and perhaps how your prior background at Qualcomm had influenced the way you saw crypto and why it mattered?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me. So I kind of heard about Bitcoin like in the, right after the 2008 crisis. And I thought it was kind of neat and interesting, but my only interest in it was, can I figure out if I could build like a GPU accelerated miner or something like that? And my first experience with crypto was during that rush where people were building faster and faster miners. There's actually a project that promised to give you an ASIC. So I ordered one, and they built the ASIC, but they delayed releasing it for 6 months so they could mine all the advantage of that ASIC and get all the rewards before shipping it to you. So that was like my first intro to crypto, I would say. And I thought it was kind of neat, but didn't really take it seriously, I think, up until, I would say, 2017. And I had a side project. One of the co-founders of Solana, Stephen Ackridge, he's a GPU lead at Qualcomm. We had a side project building systems for deep learning, and we were using crypto to mine in the background to save on capital costs for this hardware. And this is when I got into proof of work, and I was like trying to figure out, why is it so useful? Why is it necessary? Why does it cause high fees in Bitcoin? Because at that time, fees spiked to like 60, 70 bucks a transaction. They stopped taking Bitcoin as a payment for the Bitcoin conference. And I literally had like 2 coffees at Cafe Soleil in San Francisco and a beer, and it didn't sit well with me. And I was up till like 4 in the morning, and I had this eureka moment that there's a way to encode passage of time as a data structure, which I didn't know, but that's called a verifiable delay function. And I simply couldn't Google for it because that's not a name that I would have come up on my own to call those things. So I thought I had come up with something really unique and interesting, and a way to generate a proof. And at that time, there were a lot of kind of like proof of this, proof of that systems coming out. And why it really like kind of took a hold of me and like kind of really pushed me down the rabbit hole is because I spent most of my career at Qualcomm. It's a company that works in the wireless industry. If you folks remember your early physics classes, you have 2 radio towers that transmit radio at the same time or the same frequency, get noise. So the information is not passing through. So the way that they solve this for 2G cellular networks is called time division multiple access. All the towers have a clock, and they alternate by time when they can transmit. And this is the same problem in Bitcoin. If you have 2 block producers that produce a block at the same time, the network is in a noisy state, and you don't know which is the right fork. So when I knew that I could generate a data structure permissionlessly that represented passage of time, I knew that I could build TDMA, and that means I can build a fast network. And that was kind of like what sparked the idea. But what probably the main reason is like why I went from just an idea to quitting my job, raising funding and everything, is because I spent most of my career building operating systems. So I was one of the first engineers on Brew, this operating system that ran vast majority of like flip phones and cell phones that ran like Qualcomm chips. And I saw like we basically bootstrapped that whole ecosystem from like nobody wanted to run any applications on phones and thought that the only downloadable app were ringtones, to like, okay, we're playing around and messing around with stuff, to all of a sudden this is the most important platform in the world. So the fact that Ethereum had smart contracts and developers were building these things and they were different than any other kind of application you could write on any other infrastructure, to me it was like, okay, this is an OS, I'm good at building operating systems, and that's really what got me to go fully in.
That's great technical insight as to how you got interested in building Solana. As part of this program, a lot of it is about building and forming relationships between co-founders, and you mentioned one. Raj is another. I'd love to ask you how you met the right people to start Solana with, and how you built and maintained those relationships over the last couple of years.
Yeah, a lot of this was close friends of mine. So Raj was somebody I met through a close friend that I've known for over 20 years. He's a CERN physicist that I respect very deeply, and he worked with them at Omada Health. And when I decided, okay, I'm going to go start this company, he recommended that I talk to Raj because in all my connections were deeply technical folks with a ton of experience, building and executing and engineering, but zero experience in actually raising money or like doing anything else like what a normal company requires. And Raj has raised money before, he's founded companies before, and we kind of mind melded, and he was like, okay, I'll give you 6 months. I'll see if I can like help you raise money and get kind of the team together. And it's been like basically 5 years since that we've been working together. And he's the COO, and like I would say you kind of need like, with a lot of other engineers, I can kind of hand them off work and they just go and build it. And there's a lot of trust there. That's really important. But with like starting a company and actually like going from 0 to 1 and finding product market fit, it's such a like non-linear, unpredictable task that you're like, we were literally like, during COVID, we were on like a 24/7 Zoom call. Like that was just an open window. I still like, I have like the image of what his background was like burned into my brain at this point. And I would just be pacing around like talking to him like all the time, trying to figure out how do we like launch, how do we get the first users, the first developers to go use this thing. You need somebody that's not an engineer, I think, to do that. It could be an engineer that does it with, but it's not an engineering skill.
What stands out to you as the set of attributes that are indicative of finding the right person there?
Somebody that has like the stamina to like argue things to exhaustion, I would say. And like I think once you recognize that we've covered all the options, we were kind of okay. We don't all the remaining options are as good as possible. So it's almost like we're picking at random, But like you need somebody with a lot of stamina to go like through that process with you.
I was really excited when I first met you because I had met a bunch of teams in the prior months who had been building on Solana. And you were just talking about the process of finding product market fit, finding a developer community. What are some of the things that you learned and you would advise people today to do as they go through that process?
So for me, it was very accidental. We basically didn't raise as much money as our competitors. We had a small seed round, it was like $3 million, and then we raised like 15 in the A round. And our competitors raised hundreds of millions of dollars, like literally, like hundreds of millions. So we had enough to, and I was lucky that I was able to hire a bunch of folks who worked with Qualcomm for over a decade, that we had a really good engineering team, but I couldn't build everything. So we had to really optimize for the one thing that Solana could be good at, and that was finality as fast as you can around the world with as much throughput as you can. And that meant no EVM support, no like Ethereum support. Like we really had to go build a very unique system. And that actually ended up being a huge differentiator because at that time we were one of the first to get to market, and it was fast, it still is, and super cheap. And all the other competitors were basically EVM chains, like EVM plus a consensus mechanism improvement. And it was really hard for developers to differentiate between those EVM solutions and any other ones, or roll-ups and all these other things. So they kind of split the market of all the curious people by N. And everyone that was interested in Rust and like an alternative way to build software, and engineers they're curious people. Like that's just what makes you an engineer. Is you're curious, you will go try out a system and mess around with it. Those folks actually all just came to Solana and started experimenting and building things. And it was really like rough at that time. What we built was literally like, here's a way for you to build a system call in Rust. And you had to serialize and deserialize everything by hand. There was no libraries. It was like as close to like a Linux kernel driver experience as you can get. So there was a huge barrier to entry for people to overcome. But because it did something that no other chain did, it was really, really fast, and you couldn't copy and paste Ethereum code. That actually was like really important for those early devs that could put in the effort and like build something really cool that was different. No one else had that at the market, in the market. And that I think created this kind of sticky ecosystem of these early adopters that were willing to chew glass. We literally called it chewing glass, and like, build something really awesome, and like actually see the benefits of their efforts. I think in those early days, you saw a lot of ecosystems pop up, and like you would just see a rush of copy paste smart contracts moving from Ethereum to those, and it would kind of decimate anyone that was actually genuinely curious and had like wanted to spend the time and innovate. But because of the barrier to entry, you just couldn't do that. So there was a kind of like this weird accidental thing that in retrospect, I think was a huge part of our success.
I think it was Eddie on our team who first, at least to me, used the term nerd snipe. And what I'm hearing from you is that programming in Rust and your virtual machine were an excellent nerd snipe to create a passionate niche for Solana. Is there a process that you have sort of derived post-haste that you think can be applied to finding the right nerd snipes or creating the right niches?
Yeah, I think you generally have to like try to unlock something that's 10x, 100x better. And that's pretty tough, and that's just really hard engineering work. I think we might have this is again not necessarily trying to nerd snipe people, but we built this compressed NFT feature where it's using stateless accumulators. No one else, like these were cool concepts in 2019. Other folks haven't launched them because they require a lot of bandwidth, and Solana is actually well suited for high bandwidth transactions. So we launched these things, and it reduced the cost of minting NFTs by exponential. Like it costs like $100 to mint a million NFTs now. So that is a nerd snipe for certain people. Like, and we see like new developers that are coming in to build on Solana simply because of that, even though it is actually kind of a pain in the ass to work with that data structure. But because it's like a 100x improvement over anything else, they're willing to put in the effort to do it. So you got to find that like outlier improvement that you can build. I think, this is true of all tech. Like, why did people start working on like generalized GPU programming like 5 years ago? It was a massive pain in the ass, but it did have that like 100x improvement on certain applications.
Mm-hmm. So we're talking a little bit about some of the passionate niche users, but you've also before talked about wanting to expand crypto adoption and bring it to hopefully everyone on Earth. What do you think are some of the bottlenecks today that you're focused on expanding to make crypto ubiquitous?
So we're trying a lot of things. Like one of the crazier things that we're trying is like launching a phone. And the reason for that, probably like if I didn't work at Qualcomm and I knew that these are the 5 things that you need to do to go like launch, there's no way we would have taken this on. But it is actually literally going out like in a couple days. April 20th, the devices are shipping. So like the big challenge with crypto is that it really doesn't fit well with the Web2 business models. Like the idea that you own your own digital content does not work with how traditional software companies make money. And this goes back to like even reselling your Windows license. Like Microsoft does not want you to resell the Windows license that you bought. They want you to like pay Microsoft, and then everyone else pay Microsoft every time they copy it to a new machine. Because they want that revenue, right? It's great when you get it. Same thing with like music or any other digital content. The like kind of deep irony there is like Apple built the iPod so you can take your music anywhere, but it wasn't really your music because you can't actually go resell it. Like they really want you to rent the music from them and then like play it, right? And with an NFT, when you buy it on Magic Eden, you actually bought it from another person, and it's a real transfer of value. Magic Eden can't charge 30% more on that transfer on the mobile app store. There's just no way that they can do that because they don't own that content, right? It's some other third party that owns it, and they're charging a market rate for it, and they can't list prices 30% higher on their mobile store because these are like $10,000 NFTs. No one's going to pay $13,000 for something that's worth $10,000 on a desktop. So this really just doesn't work with how like these app store models work. So this is one of the reasons why like we decided to launch our own phone, is because we can build an alternative app store model where it's all crypto based. There's no additional fees and stuff like that. And that's potentially like, it's not gonna, I would love to sell 1 billion devices, right? But like I'm being realistic. I think the likely thing that could happen here is that we see a flywheel effect where some developers that have great mobile applications on the current mobile app stores, they know who their whales are, they know who the 1% of their users are that generate 90% of their revenue. They should literally be giving out this phone for free to those users. Because if they can convert them from that 30% fee revenue to the 0% fee revenue, that's a massive improvement for those developers. And once that starts, once you start seeing revenues shift to app stores that don't have this rake, I think you'll start actually seeing the VPs and all these other folks at these big companies actually take notice and adjust their policies, take crypto seriously, add support for self-custody and all those other things, and then the door is open. And then we actually see wide adoption. But this is like a slog. I think adoption in crypto is really, really hard because you're building like two-sided marketplaces for everything. And you need applications that are really, really good, that are so good that people are actually willing, install an extension in their Chrome browser and do all of this stuff. There are some, right? People are obviously doing it, but it's just like we need to overcome all these bottlenecks and barriers on the UX side and on the application side.
And you've been hinting a little bit at the importance of scalability towards being a really important unlock. And Solana has been very focused on performance and scale. I would love to get your thoughts on the end game of blockchain scalability, so to speak. When we have 1 billion users engaging on Magic Eden or on another NFT marketplace, how will that work under the hood?
So there's basically, I think, 2 schools of thoughts kind of emerging, I would say. One is the Solana way, which is improving the performance of the validators, and the other one is kind of going the data availability like sampling route, which is the Ethereum route. And I'm very bearish on that approach, being able to achieve the kind of cost to the user for throughput that you can on a system like Solana. So the way Solana works is you have as many validators as you want, some number of them, but they need high bandwidth, high availability systems. And these systems today, like when you go to a data center, they give you literally 1 gigabit for free. Like 1 gigabit up and down is the standard connection. The data center has 10 gigabits up and down available. And the cost per terabyte right now is like 60 cents per terabyte of egress. So if you have 10,000 validators, they're all paying 60 cents per terabyte for egress, and this is the Solana data availability layer, then the cost to the user per byte comes out roughly about like 2 to the minus 7 or something like that per byte. So it's a very, very small amount of dollars that you have to pay per message. Because the way Solana works is that it's actually able to leverage that 1 gigabit channel. It's able to saturate it as much as possible. Basically, as many cores as you can throw at these validators, the more cores they have, the more data they can process, the more they saturate these channels, the more efficiently they're using the resources allocated to this network, the lower the cost per byte to the user. And this is the approach that we're taking. And if you think about what decentralization means, and that's like how secure the network is from majority attacks. Like, can a single system or some minority of systems detect that the majority is doing something bad and notify users and stop that? Solana definitely achieves that because it can support a very large number of nodes that are all fully connected at the same time, receive the data at the same time, vote at the same time. So from that perspective, it satisfies both high throughput, high decentralization, and like low latency for finality. And I don't think that the way that Ethereum's design is going to come close to that kind of cost. I think you'll see prices on Ethereum being like 1,000 times more expensive. And that's just simply because hardware utilization.
Do you think there will be a place for multiple different architectures? And how do you imagine that evolving over time? What role will Solana play if you see multiple different existing?
I mean, like I think some teams will just want to launch a Cosmos chain. There's just no way to stop them. Like, and it's easy, and they're going to do it, and like I think that's totally fine.
Yeah.
So I think that that's definitely going to happen. I think the roll-up kind of data availability centric solutions are all very similar in terms of how they perform, I think. And that architecture, I think, is sound. And Ethereum, I think, is like really championed the research there. It's like I don't know if folks remember 2017, the sharding, consensus sharding, WASM, EWASM roadmap is so far like so far away from where the Ethereum roadmap is today, and that's good because there's no way that was going to work.
Before we open it up to Q&A, I'd love to ask you, you get interviewed quite a bit. What are the questions that you wish people would ask you more?
Oh man. Adoption, I guess, developers, like that's kind of what I'm like, how are we like actually growing the ecosystem in terms of developers? Like this is like an open secret. We have really great hackathons, and we don't really do anything special. I kind of don't understand why other ecosystems haven't copied this, but we try to get as many devs together into a single event so they can work together and actually meet each other and like collaborate. And each one of these events has like kind of a different flavor because the narratives change and what crypto is about. Like it was DeFi, then NFTs, now like a bit more social and stuff like that. And having all the people work together on a kind of single deadline really accelerates the development and ideation and actually going from, okay, I'm kind of messing around with this stuff on the internet over the weekend to I'm gonna build a product and a pitch deck and try to race for it. And that pressure of a competition actually works really well. So that was kind of like, that's like the whole secret sauce.
With that, we'd love to open it up for questions. I'm sure there are many in the audience. If you'd walk up to the mic, please fire away.
Hi, this is Linglong from Blockus, and we're building a Web3 gaming platform. So my question is, as we know that it takes a long time to build a infrastructure one chain, how do you balance between like release your product alpha version versus I need to be stable enough to be performant enough? How do you make that trade-off?
That's a really, really hard question. So like internally, we never had enough like resources to build everything. So we focused on stuff that we could, that like, you know, if a developer can do this over a weekend, we just wouldn't do it internally. Like, and that often means that the developer experience is bad. So you try to like really work on the things that take a long time to build and really optimize. And then stability versus shipping features is a really, really tough trade-off. I think during a bull run, you have to like ship as fast as you can to try to onboard as many people as you can. During a bear run, you like focus on stability. I don't know if this is consciously the choice that we made, but that was really like, it felt like if you were moving too slowly during a bull run, you would miss your opportunity to like kind of leg up and like get wider adoption, get as many more use cases and things like that. So it's something that you guys would have to internally kind of, you know, make that gut decision as a CEO. Do we ship this now or like try to make it better and ship it in 6 months?
Got it, makes sense. Another question I have is, we know Solana is great, but there are also like other L1 coming like all the time. What's your like analysis or your thoughts on the new upcoming chains such as like Sui or Aptos?
So when Libra launched Move, like I'm a software engineer, I'm a virtual machine geek. Move was a pretty cool VM, so we actually demoed it, like we could run Move in parallel on Solana, and the performance there was about 4 times faster on the Solana fork than on Libras at the time. So we are actively building a LLVM front end for Move to compile Move to the bytecode that Solana uses. So our approach to tech has been like, you know, stand on the shoulders of giants. We use LLVM. We use like as many standard Linux tools, so we can then, like whenever something cool and new comes out, we can port it and like activate it on the network. In terms of like performance, I don't like, again, we will adopt whatever makes Solana faster. If there's like ideas or something like that that people demonstrate like live on mainnet, hey, this is actually faster.
Got it. Thank you.
One thing I really appreciate is the approach of going mobile first. I think there are a lot of skeptics from the perspective of the cost structure and performance compared to like the incumbents, but yeah, it's definitely, something has to give. My question would be, long term, are you building the disruptor or are you building a companion crypto device? Yeah, how do you think of that? And like, what do you like see from your perspective that maybe people don't really understand in terms of the long term?
Yeah, so like the software stack SMS is, you can separate that from the device. So we wanted to build a device because it's kind of you need like an OEM that's willing to chew glass with you because you need like OEM changes to add support and the secure element and trust zone, and like all of those iterations are a pain in the butt to do. And I'm not sure we could have worked with like a huge OEM on this. Like Awesome is a startup like us, they're out of Cupertino, so they're willing to kind of like do custom stuff, right? Like put their best engineers on this and like build this with us. But SMS itself as a piece of software, like now that it's done and we've iterated once on it, like I would basically love to give it to every other OEM in the world and have it like run on every device, right? Like the cheapest Android to the most expensive one. That process is going to take some time, but that's kind of the idea is like, we don't need to have our own device succeed. We can actually have the software stack succeed on its own. And that's the more disruptive part. But I would, obviously would love to sell a bajillion devices. But that's a different business, right? Than like, I think building platforms.
Excellent, thank you.
Hey, thanks for the talk. David from Discov here. I would love to see some competition with iOS and their app store. But as a user, I also, realistically speaking, it would take a lot for me to switch to another OS. So I'm curious, like, how do you see that, and like, what are the other sort of strategies or tactics that you're thinking about in terms of getting mint buttons on iOS or mobile, right? Like, it seems like it's holding back the industry a little bit.
Yeah, like I don't know if you've used the Glow Wallet extension on Safari iOS. That's probably the best UX in crypto because it signs directly in the app in the Safari window. But it's really like, I think you're gonna have to have somebody succeed with crypto without Apple for the Apple to change its mind. Like actually show that they're losing market share on something that is more important to them than the App Store revenue, which would be their hardware sales. Like, and that's gonna take, I think, global crypto adoption. Like, it's just not, I don't, we can do it, I hope, but like, I think realistically it's gonna take the whole industry. The kind of the positives here is that like most of the world actually outside of the US is not as iOS centric, and crypto is very global. As you guys have seen from the developer charts, it's growing faster outside of the US in terms of like the number of people building applications and stuff like that. So if you're building a business in crypto, you kind of have to think of your consumer base as being very global. Like your developers, everyone else that you talk to is not being only in the US. And that means supporting Android. And if we actually see decent growth globally outside of iOS, I'm pretty sure Apple will kind of change its mind because I don't know how much they care about they care more about losing, I think, market share and platform control than they do care about the App Store revenues, I would say.
How do you guys think about decentralization right now, and what would happen to Solana if you weren't there?
So if you look at my GitHub, I'm actually not contributing as much code as I used to. Every once in a while, I write like a proposal. So I think actually development, everything else will be fine. I I do spend a lot of time on Twitter. um, so that kind of like buzz factor decentralization, the biggest effort that the foundation is undertaking is working with the Jump high frequency trading team to build a second implementation from the ground up of the Solana validator. So they get to see the maze from the start to finish. We had to like build the code and do the R&D at the same time and get to market and everything. They actually know exactly what the code does now and like get to optimize it. So their team is building everything in C. They're showing tests that are like over 600,000 TPS. It's on like modern day hardware. And that both increases performance and reduces the buzz factor. So if like, for whatever reason, something were to happen, there's another team that is just as smart that's moving the design forward.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, thanks for your talk. With the Solana phone coming out in the App Store that's going to be on it, how are you thinking about what gets shown in the App Store, like content moderation, and like where's the barrier between like removing spam and like censorship?
Yeah, so initially it's just going to be us doing this because the number of like all the applications that are being developed for it are basically folks from the ecosystem that we know. But I think the right approach to this problem is to have kind of community-driven, like different moderation lists. So it's not a single global list, it's a bunch of them. You subscribe to whichever one you want, and it's driven by your favorite NFT community or some other governance mechanism and stuff like that. So my approach is like kind of like the more Reddit Discord model, where you have a bunch of communities with their own self-governing rules.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
What do you see as the biggest threat to the rollout of Solana in the future?
Threat? I don't know. I mean, like, probably that we don't discover any application in crypto that's useful to a large number of people in the world. Like that, there's no proof that like nothing that crypto is built yet is like really necessary to 1 billion people. That's been like, I think the biggest threat to the entire space. So yeah, if a large number of people don't need crypto, you don't need a high performance blockchain.
What do you think has been the closest to like a real world use case so far? Or maybe what are you most excited about?
So I think like there's a couple applications that are building kind of social finance. So Dialect and Backpack are, one is more of a wallet-centric approach, Backpack, the other one's a chat app. But basically, you have social, you have chat, you have ability to interact with people, but then you can also have financial events in that thing. So I can send you like a message that's one half of a multi-sig that you're supposed to sign, and then it does something. So you can build like a global app that supports many currencies, but has rich financial applications that can work locally and globally and across borders. I think that is like a potential to be like, the crypto WeChat. And if it's a moderate success, like if it's even like a small success in the social side, like 10, 20, 30 million users, that would be the biggest thing in crypto, right? That would be the biggest application in crypto. And once you get to like even 10 million users, I would say it would be enough. Once you get to that scale of like general consumers using this, you can start testing like what DeFi applications does the general consumer actually want. And you can then start finding product market fit loops there, and like I think you'll see a flywheel. But like we need something that has like 100 million people using it. Like I think in the next 5 years, if that doesn't happen, that's I think the biggest threat to the entire space.
Thank you.
And it's really on that topic, you have a lot of people here building a wide variety of different things. Are there other applications that you are particularly excited about in terms of increasing the total number of users who have interacted with the blockchain?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, gaming, we have started a big effort in gaming last year, and we had like close to 40 teams that were in closed beta or further along during Breakpoint that should be launching sometime this year. So that's one big potential thing that could unlock a lot of users. There's still like no one has proven, okay, this is the NFT loop with gaming. Users love these NFTs, they attract more users, and it's growing. That hasn't been proven yet in any game in crypto. Payments is another one. I think payments is just really, really obvious. we were close with like big payment company in the US to launch something very compelling, but the crackdown on the regulatory side really makes it hard. I'm hoping that this year, like there is a stablecoin bill that just kind of makes it like simple for somebody like USDC to operate, and like for people to launch their own versions of USDC. I think that would be like a huge unlock for the entire space. I think DeFi really needs a large consumer base to prove out. Right now, everything that we see in DeFi is still very much kind of the same kind of DeFi that you saw from 2018, which is like these things are trading crypto tokens or managing crypto tokens. And I think it's awesome that they've proven out that you can actually do risk management. Like Aave didn't blow up during any of the crashes. That's awesome. I think that it's really proven that it's ready for real world assets and everything else, but you're not going to get there until you have enough consumers that have self-custody, that care about transparency and access to these applications through DeFi versus E-Trade, right? Like as long as people prefer E-Trade or Fidelity, you're not going to get a ton of adoption there.
This may already exist, but I was curious, have there been thoughts about like a VM layer on top of Solana such that you could port EVM compatible contracts without kind of that dev experience, but get the benefits of the performance enhancements?
Yeah, there's two efforts. One is called Neon, which is literally the Sputnik VM, which is a Rust implementation of a VM that's compiled as a Solana program, and it executes. It's pretty cool that it's actually like does incremental execution, so you can post very large Ethereum transactions, and then it cranks through them. So that's one. I think they're launching as soon as mainnet is on 1.14 or later. And then there's a compiler that we are working on called Solang, as an open source compiler. So you can take Solidity and recompile it as a Solana program. And that one is a bit more work. You'd kind of have to, put in some effort to make sure that correctness and like kind of the interfaces are preserved.
Cool, thank you so much.
For sure.
I have maybe one more.
But
Anatoly, you've obviously built across multiple cycles already in crypto, starting back in, I think, 2018, then a bear market through the massive upswing in 2021, and now through another bear market. Love to maybe hear if you have any kind of parting words of wisdom for the builders in this room about what it's like to build through cycles, through the ups and downs, not only building a product, but also building a community and an ecosystem through all those different cycles.
I would honestly say that you're almost too late if it's a bull market. It's really, really hard to get real product market fit when everything is so noisy. Right now, every user that you get, every account you sign up, or whatever your business model is, it's going to be real. Like you actually get real signal, you get to iterate. Even if those numbers are small, they're small for everyone. So like investors are going to always push you where's more, where's growth, where there's more revenue and stuff like that. But, if it's bad for everyone, but they have believe in the macros of the space, you're in a really good spot. And if you grind out and you get like those real signals, when the bull cycle starts, you should see growth that's outpacing everyone else. And like everyone else is, if you're right, you will have a dozen competitors launch during the bull market that are copying you, and they're never going to be able to catch up. Like I think that's kind of like the big benefit of starting now. The other thing now is like right now you have a lot more support from ecosystems. If you guys are building on Solana, we will literally like have engineers that can help you. There's grants for writing open source code and stuff like that, which was not possible in the previous cycle. Like I think that was kind of non-existent, I would say. But like, yeah, right now for application developers, all the layer ones are hungry for adoption, and they can't build apps themselves. You guys have to do them. So we will literally bend over backwards, like reach out to me, like Anatoly at Solana.com. If you guys need engineering support, we will help you.
So with that, thank you so much for being here today, Anatoly.
Thank you.